Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Transpicuous News. It's another week of insanity and funness and so much crazy shit going on. I tell you, more transparency, spinning out of control, and sometimes the transparency highlights maybe perhaps what they didn't really want to highlight. We're going to talk about the Panama Leaks because it's the big news this week. And it is kind of the ultimate spin out of leaked information that is perhaps leaking more than what they actually anticipated they wanted to leak. Talk about transparency. I'll take you in. Let's go look. I'll share my screen with you because we got a few things. We have a few things to discuss today. So, if you've been following anything in the news, you know all about the big leaks that came out of Panama. If you haven't, I'll give you the rundown. Basically, Panama is one of the capitals for hidden money everywhere, and it's where people create shell companies and offshore banking, etc. So on Monday, a couple days ago, an independent journalism group, quote that, okay, independent, leaked a massive amount of information out of one law firm out of Panama. The information goes from the 70s all the way up to last month, showing 2.4 terabytes of information and files that basically outs world leaders, major politicians, major businesses as having multiple shell holding companies, avoiding tax paying, offshore tax havens, I mean, everything. And this is blown open huge. So everyone saw this one, went, oh my God. I mean, just to give you an idea of in world leaders, we're talking named in this leaks, President of Argentina, the former Prime Minister of Georgia, Iceland's Prime Minister, and we're going to talk about that one, former Prime Minister of Iraq, former Prime Minister of Jordan, former Prime Minister of Qatar, former Emir of Qatar, King of Saudi Arabia, former President of the Sudan, the UAE President, Abu Dhabi's Emir, convicted former Ukrainian Prime Minister, and the current President of the Ukraine, Poroshenko, you know, my favorite person. That's just the touch-off list. That's just world leaders that this directly implicates. But it goes on. It's like associates, relatives, business associates, government ministers, etc. And the list goes on and on and on. Now, when this broke, the big one was, of course, everyone pointed, there was a shitload of evidence by this independent journalism group that pointed at Syria, Russia, China. Yeah. Really, really highly focused in very obvious places that immediately made a lot of people go, independent? Really? This is independent media? So I want to go run you through some of the stories that have come out. Now, we started off, one of the biggest bombshells of all this that is going to have very far-reaching repercussions, especially in the alternative media, is Iceland. Because Iceland's current prime minister was seriously outed in these Panama leaks as having a shitload of offshore holdings, all kinds of hidden money that were hidden during the time of the 2008 financial crash. It looks real bad. It looks really, really, really bad. And it started off with him saying, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. Until very, very late last night, all of a sudden he's like, okay, I'm resigning as prime minister. And now he's basically, they're calling for the dissolution of parliament in Iceland. Yeah, the Icelandic people, not very happy about this because you see, like a lot of the alternative media, the Icelandic people, lock, stock, and barrel, for the most part, bought into the whole Iceland revolution meme. That would be you know, one that I've been talking about for a long time, the Iceland Revolution that didn't happen. And this current prime minister is supposed to be one of the guys, one of the good guys, one of the new guys, different guys. He's moral and ethical, and he's not one of those guys. And oh, look, yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's just the same. This is going to have, like I said, massive repercussions, because there's been a few of us, there's been a bunch of people in Iceland, myself also, who've been talking about this, saying this Iceland revolution never happened. It was a re-phoenixing of the system. It was a test. How can we make it, how could they make it look like revolution happened, that change happened, so much so that even their own citizens and people buy it without actually anything happening, with nothing new taking place. It played out beautifully, and that Iceland meme just won't die. Everyone keeps pushing the Iceland revolution that never happened. Well, this bit here is the proof in the pudding. And it is going to have far-reaching repercussions, because now a lot of people are going to have to go back and look at some of the agendas and propaganda that's been pushed about Iceland and really take a strong look at it and see what it actually means. Now, going on, oh, well, one of the people that got named was David Cameron, Prime Minister of Britain and the UK. His dad apparently had a whole bunch of offshore accounts and shell companies, and was hid, I can't remember what the number was, it $30 billion taxes shed. Anyway, so everyone's taking pot shots at David Cameron right now. The British people also not too impressed. Edward Snowden has actually made a couple of hysterical comments on this. One of the best parts of it is of course, David Cameron's been trying to pass all these laws that basically takes privacy completely out of the United Kingdom. And that basically people shouldn't need privacy. If you've got nothing to hide, you should not be afraid of all these facts that we're spying on you 24/7. Until, of course, his own family gets pointed at. And then Cameron has the balls to turn around and say, well, it's private. That's private. What my dad did was private. You don't need to know about that. But we want to know everything else that you guys are doing. So yeah, not going over too well in the UK either. Now, what's interesting is the secondary players. We're not just talking about world leaders. We're talking about the movers and shakers behind the world leaders. So the list of in UK government and movers and shakers in Britain, oh, kind of like a who's who of who've got all these hidden accounts. Now, it gets better, because in this stuff we also have outed all the usual suspects who helped set up all these hidden accounts. Oh, none other than, you know, our current favorites of, you know, HSBC, the Rothschilds, UBS, and Credit Suisse, directly named as being responsible for this. So here we go, our favorite dirty boys. But there's something missing. There's something majorly missing in all this information, as it points out all these lords in London and the Russians and the Syrians and the Saudis, oh, and the King of Morocco. No mention of a single American politician or banker or business person. None. I don't know. That was the first thing I looked at. I was like, oh, look at this list of people who are listed in these 2.4 terabytes of data. No Americans? I find that oddly off-putting. I have questions. Well, so does a lot of people. And that's one of the biggest things that's coming out of this, right? This is one of the biggest pieces. Here's a piece of leaked information that's been pushed out that should be the kind of thing that could take down a system. Except one of the biggest things to come out of this is this independent journalism group, independent, is being thoroughly funded by none other than George Soros and several others, which is why they have not released any American, actually North American, because not even Canadian information has been released. Okay, get this, this is a thud. This is a complete thud. The exact same question appeared in an interview conducted between Wired magazine and the director of the organization that released the Panama Papers, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. There's a lot of I acronyms going around that seem to have direct ties to certain agencies. You find it confusing? This is what he replied. Royal says that the media organization have no plans to release the full data set, WikiLeaks style, which he argues would expose the sensitive information of innocent private individuals along with the public figures on which the group's reporting has focused. We're not WikiLeaks. We're not trying to show that journalism can, we are trying to show, that journalism can be done responsibly. Really? He says he advised the reporters from all the participating media outlets to go crazy, but tell us what's in the public interest for your country. Oh, really? So it's not in the public interest for the United States of America to know who's got hidden offshore accounts? Who is benefiting from all of this tax havens? It's not for the Americans, because when all that information is missing, it just gives you a little bit of a highly scrutinized look at who is operating, running, and controlling the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, because you'd think they'd put out all the information, wouldn't they? So here we go. Next little piece though in this. Who are the Americans? Well, there is some, but no names have been released. The one little bits of data that we can get about this, about the Americans in the Panama Papers, is there are at least 200 scanned individual US passports. Some appear to be American retirees purchasing real estate in places like Costa Rica and Panama. Also in the database, about 3,500 shareholders of offshore companies who list US addresses, and almost 3,100 companies who are tied to offshore professionals based in Miami, New York, and other parts of the United States. Further complicating the matters is some US citizens enjoy dual citizenship and open accounts under foreign passports. Oh, was there any Israeli business information leaked in this? Because I didn't see any Israeli business information leaked in this. Now, granted, I have not gone through 2.4 terabytes of information. We also know that there's quite a few dual US-Israeli passports that are held in Congress and in the Senate, don't we? And a lot of dual citizenship passports held by Congress and the Senate. And, you know, the very fact that you can buy a passport for any country, as long as you have the money, which, of course, if you're hiding your money in offshore accounts so you don't pay taxes on it, you probably do have the money to buy a passport to another country to list your offshore accounts in. Now, what I find really interesting about all this was within 24 hours of that Panama Papers being leaked, Obama invokes the Panama Papers as U.S. Treasury moves to stop corporate tax dodgers. That's right. It's just purely coincidental, 100% purely coincidental, that the U.S. Treasury and Obama were all ready to run with this whole thing about tax dodgers within 24 hours of the Panama Papers being leaked. Purely coincidental. I'm sure it was not set up in any way, shape, or form. The Treasury has taken action twice to make it harder for companies to invert. Now, inverting is basically what companies do to get themselves out of the state. So we're going to do all these things. We'll buy out other companies, and we're going to change our home base from the States to, say, Ireland, where instead of 35% corporate tax rate, they only pay 12% corporate tax rate. Or if you're General Electric or DuPont or any of those guys, you pay 0 tax rate, right? Would that be through hidden money and hidden clauses? Or is that just a special status for preferred customers? Very, very interesting. And I also found this delightfully funny. In Zero Hedge, gotta love it. In 20 words, the ECB, European Central Bank, explains the business model of every central bank. Are you ready for it? Because this is what we needed to hear this morning. Central banks are protected from insolvency due to their ability to create money and therefore operate with negative equity. Right there. Now, I want to just read this other little clip because it's one of those you just shake your head and go, well, at least it's public. We can refer back to this now. The Federal Reserve System specifies that it remits the entire net surplus to the U.S. Treasury after payments of dividends to its shareholders, and after the surplus fund has reached a maximum limit, which is the same as paid up capital. If the net surplus is 0, then there's no payment to the Treasury. In the case of a net loss, no remittance is made until future earnings are sufficient to cover the loss. So one might ask, when was the last time the Federal Reserve paid anything to the U.S. Treasury? Because all they have to do is keep saying they're covering their net losses after they've paid their dividends, their shareholders. And there, my friends, is an awesome piece of transparency. The next time someone tries to tell you that, the central banks are run by the government, no, really, the Federal Reserve is part of the U.S. government. You may want to pull out this one. And a final comment to Zero Hedge, and that for those curious as to why every commercial bank in the world is now backstopped by central banks, that's all you need to know. Protected from insolvency due to their ability to create money and therefore operate with negative equity. Bitcoin, anyone? E-currency, anyone? Right there. That's where it's all going. Negative equity, 0 equity, 0 assets, totally make-believe, pretend money. Yeah. That's what we're looking at. That is exactly what we're looking at. So I tell you, you got to wonder, my friends. You just got to wonder. Could we be having any more transparency in this? I'm telling you, if it comes out any faster, I think my head's going to just spin right off. But yeah, where's the American stuff? Oh, I also find it really interesting that one of the people who also just quit, besides the Iceland Prime Minister, which I think we're actually going to see a few of those departures from politics happen quite quickly, is the Chilean head of the so-called independent NGO that's supposed to be watchdogging tax evasion and fraud. Has just quit because apparently he's also fingered in the Panama Papers. Gotta love being the CEO of a tax fraud watchdog organization who gets outed for having hidden companies and tax money all over. And that's it, folks. That is it for Transpicuous News for right now. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. I'm keeping my eye on it. I'm pretty busy right now, but I'm keeping my eye on it. And I'll be back when there's more to talk about. Bye, everyone.